My name is Florence, and at 62 years old, I thought I understood what family loyalty meant. That Tuesday morning, while preparing for what could be the most important doctor's appointment of my life, my phone rang. It was Madison, my daughter-in-law, demanding I drop everything to babysit my granddaughter, Emma, because of some urgent work situation. When I gently explained about my cardiology appointment to discuss my recent heart tests, her response shocked me. She called me a selfish old woman who was just making excuses. I had no idea that her cruel words would mark the beginning of the end of our relationship as I knew it. Before we dive into the story about family boundaries and respect, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Please hit that like button if you've ever dealt with difficult in-laws. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories. Now let me tell you how one moment of standing up for myself changed everything in ways my daughter-in-law never saw coming. Looking back, I can trace the cracks in my relationship with Madison to the very beginning, though I was too hopeful to see them clearly. When Jake first brought her home 3 years ago, I was thrilled. She was stunning with her perfectly styled blonde hair and designer clothes that somehow always looked effortless. More importantly, my son was absolutely smitten with her. And after his difficult divorce, seeing him happy again meant everything to me. I threw myself into building a relationship with Madison. I invited them over for Sunday dinners, cooked Jake's favorite pot roast, and listened attentively as Madison talked about her marketing job at a boutique firm downtown. When they announced their engagement, I immediately offered to help with wedding planning, even though Madison seemed more interested in expensive venues than my suggestions. The wedding was beautiful, if extravagant. I bit my tongue when Madison insisted on a destination ceremony in Napa Valley that cost Jake half his savings. I wanted to see them happy, so I contributed what I could and smiled through the weekend, even when Madison barely acknowledged my presence during the festivities. When Madison became pregnant with Emma, I thought this would be our chance to bond. I offered to help with the nursery brought over meals during her difficult first trimester and was genuinely excited about becoming a grandmother again. Madison seemed to appreciate the help, though she had very specific ideas about how everything should be done. After Emma was born 18 months ago, something shifted. Madison began calling me constantly, not for grandmother advice or family bonding, but with urgent requests for babysitting. It started small, an hour here and there while she ran errands. But soon it became entire afternoons, then full days and weekends. I didn't mind at first. Emma was a sweet baby, and after losing my husband George the year before, having purpose and family time helped fill the lonely hours in my house. But Madison's requests became increasingly demanding. She would call 30 minutes before needing me, assume I had no other plans, and grow irritated if I couldn't immediately drop everything. My health had been declining since George's passing. The stress of losing my partner of 38 years, combined with the physical toll of constant babysitting, had triggered some concerning heart symptoms. My doctor ordered extensive testing, including the cardiac catheterization that led to today's crucial follow-up appointment. Despite my growing health concerns, I continued saying yes to Madison's requests. I cancelled book club meetings, skipped my own medical appointments, and rearranged my entire schedule around her needs. In my mind, this was what grandmothers did. We sacrificed for family. But Madison never seemed grateful. If I mentioned being tired or needing to rest, she would make comments about how easy my retirement must be compared to her busy career. She never asked about my health, never inquired about my grief process after losing George, and never offered to help me in return. The morning of my cardiology appointment, I had been anxious for days. My doctor's tone during our last conversation suggested the test results might not be favorable. I needed this appointment not just for my physical health, but for my peace of mind. When Madison called, demanding I cancel for yet another babysitting emergency, something inside me finally said enough. Madison's first call came while I was organizing my medical paperwork, trying to prepare questions for my doctor about the chest pains that had been worsening. Her voice carried that familiar edge of entitlement that I had learned to recognize over the past months. "Florence, I need you to watch Emma today. Something urgent came up at work, and Jake's in meetings all day. Can you be here by 10? I took a deep breath, reminding myself to stay calm. "Madison, I'm sorry, but I can't today. I have that important cardiology appointment I mentioned last week. The doctor needs to discuss my test results." The silence on the other end stretched uncomfortably, long before she responded with barely contained anger. "Seriously, Florence, this is my job we're talking about. Emma is your granddaughter. Family comes first, doesn't it?" "Of course family comes first, dear. But my doctor specifically said this appointment couldn't be rescheduled. The results of my heart catheterization are time-sensitive, and—" "Oh, please," Madison interrupted, her voice dripping with disdain. "You're always talking about some medical issue. Last month it was your knee, now it's your heart. You're 62, not 92. Stop acting like a fragile old woman and help your family when we need you." Her words hit me like a physical blow. I had never told Madison the extent of my health concerns, trying to protect Jake from additional worry while he was establishing his new family. But her dismissive attitude toward my genuine medical needs revealed something ugly about her character. "Madison, this isn't about age. My cardiologist is concerned about some irregularities and—" "God, Florence, just stop with the excuses," she snapped. "My friend Sarah's mother-in-law watches her kids whenever needed, no questions asked. She understands what being part of a family means. Maybe you should take notes from women who actually care about their grandchildren." The comparison stung deeply. I thought about all the times I had rearranged my life for their convenience, all the sacrifices I had made without complaint. Now, Madison was painting me as a selfish grandmother because I wouldn't skip a critical medical appointment. I do care about Emma, Madison. That's exactly why I need to take care of my health, so I can be here for her long term. Surely you can understand. "No, I don't understand," she cut me off again. This is what families do for each other. We sacrifice. We put each other first. But apparently, your spa day, or whatever this appointment really is, matters more than helping your son's family. Spa day. She actually thought my cardiology appointment was some sort of leisure activity. The ignorance and cruelty of that assumption left me momentarily speechless. Jake's voice appeared in the background, muffled but audible. I could hear Madison telling him that his mother was refusing to help again, that I was being difficult and selfish. My son's voice was too quiet to make out his response, but he didn't take the phone to talk to me directly. "Look, Florence," Madison continued, her tone shifting to false sweetness that somehow felt even more insulting than her anger. "I'm going to give you 1 hour to think about this. Family loyalty is a choice, and the choices we make have consequences. I hope you'll make the right decision for everyone involved." The threat was clear, though wrapped in diplomatic language. "Help us unconditionally or lose access to your granddaughter." It was emotional blackmail dressed up as family values. After hanging up, I sat in my kitchen, staring at the appointment card in my trembling hands. My chest felt tight, partly from the stress and partly from the very heart condition Madison was dismissing. I had 30 minutes before I needed to leave for the medical center, and Madison's words kept echoing in my mind. For a moment, I actually considered canceling. The thought of losing Emma, of being cut off from my granddaughter, because of Madison's vindictive threats, felt unbearable. But then I remembered my doctor's concerned expression, the urgency in his voice when scheduling this follow-up. My health couldn't wait for Madison's convenience. I drove to my appointment with a heavy heart, literally and figuratively. The cardiology office felt sterile and intimidating as I sat in the waiting room, Madison's harsh words still reverberating in my mind. When Dr. Martinez called my name, my hands were shaking from anxiety about both the test results and the family crisis brewing at home. "Mrs. Thompson," Dr. Martinez said warmly, reviewing my chart, "I have good news about your catheterization results. The blockage we were concerned about turned out to be less severe than initially suspected. With proper medication and lifestyle adjustments, your heart condition is very manageable." The relief that flooded through me was overwhelming. For weeks, I had been preparing myself for potentially devastating news, imagining worst-case scenarios about my future with Emma. Instead, I was getting a reprieve, a chance to enjoy my remaining years with proper medical care. "However, Dr. Martinez," continued, his tone becoming more serious, "your recent episodes of chest pain and irregular heartbeat are directly related to stress. Mrs. Thompson, I need you to understand that emotional strain can be just as dangerous to your heart as physical blockages. You need to eliminate unnecessary stress from your life." I nodded, thinking about the constant tension of walking on eggshells around Madison, the anxiety of never knowing when the next demanding call would come. Dr. Martinez prescribed medication and scheduled follow-up appointments, but his most important prescription was clear, reduce stress, or face serious consequences for my heart health. The drive home should have been celebratory. Instead, I found myself dreading what awaited me. My phone had been buzzing continuously during the appointment, And I finally checked it at a red light. 7 missed calls from Madison. 12 text messages that grew increasingly hostile with each unanswered notification. I can't believe you're ignoring your family for this fake medical drama. Jake is furious with you right now. We both are. Emma was crying for Grandma Flo, but I had to explain that Grandma doesn't care about her anymore. That last message broke something inside me. Using my granddaughter's emotions as ammunition in this battle felt particularly cruel. Emma was barely 18 months old. She had no understanding of the adult conflicts swirling around her. The messages continued. I had to miss my important meeting because of your selfishness. Don't expect us to keep including you in family events if you can't be counted on. Maybe it's time Jake learned what kind of person his mother really is. By the time I reached my driveway, my chest was tight again, exactly the kind of stress response Dr. Martinez had warned against. I sat in my car reading through Madison's increasingly vindictive messages, watching her transform from demanding daughter-in-law to emotional terrorist in the span of 2 hours. The final message had arrived just 10 minutes earlier. Since you've made your priorities clear, don't bother trying to contact us anymore. Emma doesn't need a grandmother who puts herself first. That evening, Jake called. His voice was tired and distant, lacking the warmth that usually characterized our conversations. Mom Madison told me what happened today. She's really upset that you wouldn't help with Emma. She says this has been an ongoing pattern of you being unavailable when the family needs you. I tried to explain about the medical appointment, about Dr. Martinez's concerns for my heart health, about the stress Madison's demands were creating. But Jake seemed to have already made up his mind, influenced by his wife's version of events. Mom, I know you've had some health issues, but Madison works really hard and she counts on your support. Maybe you could be a little more flexible with your schedule. The conversation ended awkwardly with Jake promising to call soon, but offering no defense of my position or acknowledgement of Madison's unreasonable behavior. I hung up feeling more isolated than I had since George's death. That night, I lay awake thinking about Dr. Martinez's warning about stress and my heart. I realized that my health was being damaged, not just by grief and age, but by a toxic relationship that I had been enabling out of fear of losing my family. Something had to change, but I wasn't sure I had the strength to make it happen. The next few days passed in tense silence. No calls from Jake, no demands from Madison, no pictures of Emma that usually brightened my phone. The quiet should have been peaceful, but instead, it felt ominous, like the calm before a devastating storm. By Friday, curiosity got the better of me. If Madison's work emergency had been so urgent that she couldn't possibly handle childcare herself, surely there would be some evidence of this crisis on her social media. Madison was notorious for documenting every aspect of her life online, from her morning coffee to her evening skincare routine. I opened Facebook with trembling fingers, navigating to Madison's profile with a growing sense of dread. What I found there made my stomach drop to the floor. Posted Tuesday afternoon, just 2 hours after our phone argument, was a series of photos showing Madison at an upscale spa downtown. She was lounging in a plush robe holding a cucumber water with the caption, "Finally getting some well-deserved me time." Sometimes you just have to treat yourself, even when family drama tries to bring you down. Grateful for friends who understand the importance of self-care. The timestamp showed she had posted this while I was sitting in Dr. Martinez's office receiving news about my heart condition and worrying about my relationship with my granddaughter. While I was being lectured about stress management, Madison was enjoying a leisurely spa day funded by the lie she had told about urgent work commitments. My hands shook as I scrolled through the comments. Her friends were responding with heart emojis and supportive messages about toxic family members and setting boundaries with difficult people. Madison was painting herself as the victim while literally relaxing in luxury. But this wasn't just about Tuesday. My growing suspicion led me to scroll back through her previous posts, and a pattern emerged that made me feel physically sick. Over the past 6 months, multiple times when Madison had called with work emergencies requiring immediate babysitting, her social media showed her at restaurants, shopping centers, or social events with friends. The wine tasting in Sonoma that was supposedly a mandatory client meeting. The weekend shopping trip to San Francisco that was allegedly a work conference. The girls' trip to Lake Tahoe that was presented as a business retreat. Every single emergency that had required my immediate availability was actually a leisure activity Madison wanted to pursue without her daughter. I had been played for a fool, manipulated by a master manipulator who had turned motherhood into a convenient excuse for personal freedom while guilting me into providing free childcare. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Mom, I know things have been tense. Madison feels really hurt by your lack of support. Can we try to work this out? Emma misses you." Instead of responding immediately, I did something I had never done before. I started documenting. I took screenshots of Madison's posts, noting the dates and times when her emergencies coincided with her social activities. I created a folder on my computer with evidence of her deception. Then I called my friend Helen, who had been warning me for months that Madison was taking advantage of my generous nature. Helen listened as I described the spa day revelation, her sharp intake of breath confirming what I already knew. I had been systematically lied to and manipulated. "Florence, honey, this girl has been playing you like a fiddle," Helen said bluntly. "The question is, what are you going to do about it?" For the first time in months, I felt something other than guilt and anxiety about my relationship with Madison. I felt anger, clean, righteous anger that burned away the fog of manipulation and self-doubt. "I'm going to stop enabling her," I said aloud, the words feeling foreign but powerful. "I'm going to let her face the consequences of her choices without rushing in to save her." "Good for you," Helen replied. "It's about time you remembered that you matter too." That weekend, Madison called with another emergency. This time, her tone was slightly less demanding, perhaps sensing that our previous interaction had shifted something between us. "Florence, I know we had some tension earlier this week, but I'm hoping we can move past that. I have a work event Sunday evening, and I really need someone to watch Emma. Jake has that golf tournament, so you're our only option." I checked her Facebook before responding. Sure enough, one of her friends had posted about a birthday party at a trendy rooftop bar downtown. Madison had commented with party emojis and "can't wait." "I'm sorry, Madison, but I'm not available Sunday," I said calmly. "What do you mean you're not available? What could you possibly have planned?" "I'm taking care of my health as my doctor advised. I'll be having a quiet evening at home." "Florence, this is ridiculous. You can rest anytime. This is important for my career." "I'm sure you'll figure something out," I replied. And for the first time in our relationship, I hung up first. The liberation was intoxicating. Madison's reaction to my newfound boundaries was swift and predictable. Within an hour of my Sunday refusal, my phone exploded with messages that revealed the true depth of her entitlement and manipulation tactics. "I cannot believe how selfish you're being right now," her first text read. "Jake and I are starting to wonder if you even care about this family anymore." The messages escalated quickly. "Emma is going to grow up knowing her grandmother chose to be petty instead of loving." "I'm starting to understand why Jake's first wife had issues with you too." That last comment was particularly cruel because it was entirely fabricated. Jake's ex-wife and I had maintained a cordial relationship even after their divorce, and she had never expressed any complaints about me, to my knowledge. Madison was now inventing grievances to support her narrative. But her most revealing message came later that evening. "Since you want to play games, Florence, maybe it's time everyone knew what kind of person you really are." 20 minutes later, Madison posted a lengthy Facebook status that tagged several family members and friends. "Feeling heartbroken today. Sometimes the people you expect to support you the most let you down when you need them. As a working mother trying to balance career and family, I've learned I can't count on everyone who claims to love Emma. Some people's priorities are just too different from ours. Grateful for the family and friends who truly understand what loyalty means." The post was a masterpiece of passive-aggressive manipulation, painting her as a struggling mother abandoned by an unsupportive family member without naming me directly. Friends and distant relatives began commenting with supportive messages about toxic people and protecting your peace, having no idea they were participating in a character assassination based on lies. But Madison had made a crucial error. In her anger, she had overplayed her hand and exposed her tactics to someone who could see through them, Jake. My son called that night, and for the first time in months, his voice carried doubt instead of automatic support for his wife. Mom Madison posted something on Facebook that has the whole family talking. She's implying that you've been refusing to help with Emma out of spite. But when I asked her to explain exactly what happened, her story seemed inconsistent. I took a deep breath and made a decision that would change everything. "Jake, I need to show you something. Can you come over tomorrow evening? Alone." When Jake arrived the next day, I had everything prepared. The screenshots, the timeline of Madison's lies, the documentation of her social media posts versus her claimed emergencies. I laid it all out on my kitchen table, like evidence in a court case. Jake's face went pale as he scrolled through the images. His wife's spa day posted while I was at my cardiology appointment. The wine tasting that was supposedly a work meeting. The shopping trips disguised as business conferences. Mom, I had no idea, he whispered, his voice breaking slightly. She told me you were becoming unreliable, that you were using health issues as excuses to avoid helping with Emma. I would never use my granddaughter as a weapon, Jake, and I would never lie about my health to avoid family responsibilities. He was quiet for a long time, studying the evidence, and probably re-evaluating months of conversations and arguments. What Madison said about your heart condition, is it serious? I explained Dr. Martinez's diagnosis, the medication I was taking, the stress management requirements. Jake listened with growing horror as he realized his wife had been dismissing genuine health concerns as attention-seeking behavior. Jake, I love Emma more than life itself. But I can't continue enabling your wife's dishonesty and manipulation. It's literally damaging my health. My son left that evening with a lot to think about. 2 days later, he called with news that Madison was furious about our private conversation and demanding to know what lies I had told him about her. I showed her the screenshots, Mom. She tried to explain them away, said the spa day was a last-minute change after she found childcare elsewhere. But when I pressed for details, the story kept changing. The following weekend brought the confrontation I had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. Madison arrived at my house unannounced with Emma in tow, and Jake trailing behind her, looking uncomfortable. We need to talk, Madison announced, pushing past me into my living room without invitation. This family is being torn apart by your manipulations, and it needs to stop. But as she launched into her prepared speech about family loyalty and grandmother responsibilities, I noticed something different in Jake's posture. He wasn't nodding along with her accusations. Instead, he was watching his wife with the expression of someone seeing clearly for the first time. Madison, I said calmly when she paused for breath, I've decided that I'll be happy to babysit Emma whenever you have genuine emergencies or work obligations. However, I'll need 24 hours advance notice, except for true emergencies, and I'll need honest communication about the nature of your commitments. You'll need, Madison's voice rose incredulously. Who do you think you are to make demands? Emma is our daughter, and we decide when and how family helps with her care. You're absolutely right, I agreed. You do get to decide how Emma is cared for, and I get to decide how I spend my time and energy. These are my terms for providing childcare assistance. The standoff lasted several tense minutes, with Madison apparently expecting Jake to support her position. When he remained silent, her anger shifted toward him. Are you seriously going to let your mother manipulate our family like this? Jake finally spoke, his voice steady but tired. Madison, Mom's not the one who's been manipulating anyone. The truth was finally out in the open. The aftermath of that confrontation unfolded over several weeks, bringing changes I hadn't anticipated and others I had hoped for. Madison's initial response was to double down on her victim narrative, but without Jake's unwavering support, her position became increasingly untenable. She attempted to rally extended family members against me, calling my sister Ruth, with tales of my unreasonable demands and selfishness. But Ruth, who had watched my marriage to George, and knew my character, asked pointed questions that Madison couldn't answer satisfactorily. So Florence refused to babysit because of a heart doctor appointment, Ruth had asked. And you're upset about this. Why exactly? Madison's story fell apart under scrutiny from people who knew me well. Her Facebook post backfired when several family members reached out to me directly, concerned about my health and confused by the vague accusations floating around social media. Jake, meanwhile, was processing the revelation that his wife had been systematically lying to both of us for months. He began paying attention to patterns he had previously ignored. Madison's convenient work emergencies that always seemed to coincide with social events, her dismissive attitude toward my health, concerns, her assumption that my time and energy were endlessly available for her convenience. The marriage counseling sessions that followed were apparently eye-opening for my son. Jake later told me that Madison struggled to take responsibility for her deception, instead focusing on how my boundaries were making her feel attacked and unsupported. But the most significant change was in my own life. For the first time since George's death, I began prioritizing my well-being without guilt. I rejoined my book club, started taking art classes at the community center, and accepted invitations from friends I had been neglecting while serving as Madison's on-call babysitter. My relationship with Emma evolved too. Instead of desperate last-minute babysitting sessions, we had planned visits where I could focus entirely on her without the stress of feeling used or manipulated. I took her to the park, read her stories, and taught her to bake cookies without Madison's hovering presence or urgent time constraints. Madison's behavior didn't change overnight. She continued making unreasonable demands, but now she faced consequences for her actions. When she called 30 minutes before a work emergency that turned out to be a girls' night out, I simply said no. When she tried to guilt me with comments about Emma missing her grandmother, I reminded her that she was welcome to bring Emma for scheduled visits anytime. The most telling moment came 6 months later when Madison had a genuine work crisis, a presentation that required weekend preparation for a major client. She called me with 48 hours' notice, explained the situation honestly, and asked if I could help with Emma for a few hours Sunday afternoon. Of course I said yes, because I had never been unwilling to help family. I had only been unwilling to enable dishonesty and manipulation. Jake visited me regularly during this transition period, and our relationship grew stronger as he learned to see me as a person with needs and boundaries, rather than an infinitely available resource. He apologized for not supporting me during Madison's worst behavior and promised to be more aware of family dynamics going forward. I think I was so afraid of another failed marriage that I ignored red flags I should have addressed, he admitted during one of our conversations. I let Madison treat you badly because it was easier than confronting problems in my relationship. 3 months ago, Madison finally offered what approached an apology. It was grudging and came with qualifications, but it acknowledged that she had been stressed and maybe not completely fair in her expectations of my availability. I accepted her apology graciously, but I didn't return to my old pattern of saying yes to every request. My boundaries remained firm, my health continued improving, and my relationship with Emma flourished within the structure of mutual respect. Today, as I sit in my garden watching Emma play with the wooden blocks Jake brought her for our weekly visit, I reflect on how much has changed since that pivotal Tuesday morning. My heart medication has stabilized my physical symptoms, but more importantly, learning to protect my emotional well-being has given me energy and joy I thought I had lost forever. Madison and I maintain a cordial but careful relationship. She no longer assumes automatic availability for babysitting, and I no longer feel guilty for having a life outside of her convenience. We're both happier with clear expectations and honest communication. Jake has grown into a stronger husband and father through this experience. He learned that supporting his wife doesn't require enabling poor behavior, and that protecting family relationships sometimes means addressing problems directly, rather than hoping they'll resolve themselves. Emma now, 2.5, benefits from having adults in her life who model healthy boundaries and honest communication. She spends time with a grandmother who is present and energetic, rather than resentful and overwhelmed. The lesson that emerged from this difficult period surprised me with its simplicity. Saying no to manipulation isn't selfish. It's necessary for authentic relationships. When I stopped enabling Madison's dishonest behavior, I forced our family to build connections based on truth rather than convenience. I think about other grandparents who might be reading this, wondering if their own generous hearts are being taken advantage of by adult children who have forgotten that family support should be mutual and respectful. Your time matters. Your health matters. Your emotional well-being matters just as much as everyone else's in the family. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you love your grandchildren less. It means you love yourself enough to be present and healthy for the long term. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to participate in patterns that damage relationships and enable poor character. That Tuesday morning, when I chose my health over Madison's convenience, I had no idea I was actually choosing authentic family relationships over superficial ones based on guilt and manipulation. It was the best decision I could have made for everyone involved, even though it didn't feel that way at the time. The phone rings sometimes now, and instead of feeling dread about what might be demanded of me, I feel curiosity about how I might genuinely help someone I care about. That shift from obligation to choice has made all the difference in how I experience family and how family experiences me. Madison learned that grandparents are people with their own lives' needs and limitations. I learned that love without boundaries isn't actually love at all. It's enablement disguised as devotion. And Emma learned that the adults in her life respect themselves and each other enough to communicate honestly. Sometimes the most important word in any language is a gentle but firm no spoken with love, but without apology. I'd love to hear from all of you about your own experiences with family boundaries. Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and protecting your well-being? How did you handle situations where family members took advantage of your generous nature? Please share your stories in the comments below, because I know many of you have walked similar paths, and your wisdom could help others who are struggling with these difficult decisions. If this story resonated with you, please give it a like to help other grandparents and family members who might need to hear this message. Don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about family relationships and finding the courage to stand up for yourself, even when it's uncomfortable. And please share this video with anyone who might benefit from hearing about the importance of healthy boundaries in family relationships. Sometimes we all need reminding that taking care of ourselves isn't selfish. It's necessary for being truly available to the people we love. Thank you so much for listening to my story and for being part of this community where we can share our experiences honestly. I hope your own family relationships are filled with mutual respect, honest communication, and the kind of love that builds people up rather than wearing them down. May you find the courage to protect your peace while keeping your heart open to authentic connection. Take care of yourselves and remember that your well-being matters just as much as everyone else's.